My name is Abhishek Singh, and I'm the Vice President of Product Management for Kubernetes and Container Security. Today, I'll talk to you about how to do risk operations for containers at scale. Containers are real. They're out there. It's coming. You're already aware of it. They're a prime target. But how do you do risk operations for something that is always changing? That's the challenge here. So if you have attended this conference, you have been looking at arrival rates, fixed rates, how to match them up. It gets really bad with containers. You have an explosive arrival rate. The number of vulnerabilities is too much. Every microservice is spitting out vulnerabilities. So compared to your legacy workloads, this is stretching it. This is stressing it. So your ROC really gets stressed for containers. On the elimination side of the house, things are also pretty bad. The legacy part, you had one team to go after, the IT teams, and they would find the patches. Now you have to find the right dev team. There's too many of them. So how do you make sure when you report vulnerabilities, they're going to the right teams? Beyond that, you find vulnerabilities on an image. The fix comes in a completely different image. How do you manage the life cycle of ticketing for containers? After you put all your efforts getting your hygiene down, it just completely changes under your back. So you have to have the maturity to be able to detect and respond to your baselines getting impacted, and being able to have preventive controls to protect your baseline. So shift left was what people said would solve the world hunger, right? We have realized it's more about fix left. Like Kunal said in his previous session, the new mantra is fix left. You have to have the operational maturity to take action and take control of what is happening on the ground. So how do you get ROC ready for containers? Again, you've talked about arrival rates, fix rates, attack surface, risk surface. But what does it boil down to? When we give you a TruRisk score, that's your risk surface. All the noise from vulnerabilities that don't matter don't change the score as much. So as long as you're watching your TruRisk score and the trending, things are not piling up. You have to first quantify your risk for ephemeral workloads and watch the trend. You already got your arrival rate, fixed rate covered if you have adopted TruRisk. And doing risk quantification for ephemeral workloads is where we shine. We have the game from VMDR and ETM and ROC. We make it work for containers. So that's the hygiene part. But there are some issues that are incident-worthy. You have to take action now. And that we call toxic combinations or TruRisk insights. So while you have the hygiene part of the house ready, these are incident-worthy. So some customers treat these as real incidents. And that's how they should be treated, separate from your hygiene. But we don't stop there. We give you a remediation graph. We tell you exactly what to fix visually, so you can take action right from the dashboard. And that completes the whole risk operation story. Here's a real example from a customer of ours. 2 million findings in a month. It's a lot. That's your attack surface. When you look at the next part, this is your risk surface. It's already come down. It's very different from looking at CVSS scores. I was talking to a customer, and they're saying, I do it based on CVSS, critical and major. 50% of them, they have not significantly reduced. They are false positives and false negatives. Some vulnerabilities, 5.7 CVSS score, but Qualys will say 95, actively exploited in the wild. So you have to really pay attention on the real risk, true risk, not what the CVSS is telling you. You bring business context in, what is running in dev versus prod, it goes further down. And finally, we talk about incident-worthy problems in your environment. These are manageable. Now we are talking, we can handle these. And that is how you build muscles for serious risk operations. You have to have muscles to figure out and quantify what is your risk at runtime. Shift left is not going to be enough. You have to quantify what risk comes from unpatched vulnerabilities because they're not able to keep up. Beyond that, you have to see how the misconfigurations make them toxic. So some of them become toxic because of these misconfigurations. And then it goes into what are these containers doing at runtime? What files are they accessing? What processes? What network? It gets into the realm of threat management, but we will show you how a risk context, risk management, supercharges your SOC. Like Kunal was saying, the ROC is actually helping your SOC, and we'll show it how. Beyond that, you can shift left, scan all your registries for vulnerabilities, for malware, for secrets, There's a new feature we launched, continuous assessment. You scan once, we'll continuously update the score of your images without any scan. And this is magical because some of our customers, they were scanning their images every day, every week. And every time you do that, there's a cogs to you. There's a compute wasted on your side. Beyond that, it messes the metadata on the registries, and you are not able to do your retention on the registries properly. This is a very powerful continuous assessment feature. And the final part is about DevSec harmony. We want your dev to be noise-free, work less, and still be more secure. How do we do that? We give the same risk surface management to your developers. So when they are scanning with Qualys, they're looking at things that matter. When they fix things, it is in perfect harmony and alignment with the security guys. And we have some nice integrations with ServiceNow and Jira to automate the fixed part of the house to make sure you can keep up with the incoming rates. There are these 5 pillars that I want to take some time and talk about. First thing is agentless for containers. That's an oxymoron. It doesn't work. But now we're going to do agentless for containers. I'll show you exactly how. Then we have controls from code to cloud. How do we make sure your baseline gets protected? We have recently launched KSPM, which is making your control plane and Kubernetes clusters audit ready. We have had, again, this is not that new, but we have had this integration with ServiceNow for a while. We're adding EOL and EOS, the things you're getting from CSAM. So now you can get end-of-life, end-of-support software even for container workloads. And finally, we'll show you how the threat management can benefit from all the risk context that we have in our ownership. So this is the agentless for containers. You install your TotalCloud connectors. We are discovering your clusters, your registries, your Fargates, your Lambdas out of the box. Frictionless deployments. Never happened before, for Qualys at least. After you do that, no one else can do this. We are giving you a TruRisk score for all your containers. No, not the noise. All the risky ones quantified for you on an overall enterprise basis, on a per cluster basis, on a per business basis. So again, we have this TruRisk score quantification for any containerized workload. And then, like I said, there are these toxic combinations, incident-worthy problems that you need to act on right now. We'll show you exactly how to go about it, showing exact code-to-cloud tracing. You can go to the developer that created that. We have comprehensive controls, left to right, code to cloud. You can block risky deployments from ever running in your cluster. And one simple policy anyone can do today is not scanned by Qualys, don't run in my cluster. That's a very simple policy everyone can start implementing today. You can fail risky builds. They will never get to your registry. You can fail your commits. Again, people have to have the maturity and the baseline to enforce these policies. But we are ready for you. At runtime, you can block what processes can do, file access, network access, and so on. This is, again, a newly launched feature. You are audit ready. Misconfiguration is not just a problem for cloud. It is for Kubernetes also. If you have not configured your Kubernetes cluster properly, nothing else matters. No vulnerabilities needed. You will get breached right now. You don't need to have vulnerabilities. So first order of business, get your posture right, get your compliance right. CIS for Kubernetes is what we bring to the table. ServiceNow, again, like I said, very tricky to trace and auto-close tickets. We got it covered. We can find what images are actually running in production and auto-close tickets for you, auto-assign tickets for you. So very interesting workflows. We are top-line integrated with ServiceNow, so check it out. In terms of CDR, this is very novel. You have vulnerabilities that didn't get patched. We can confirm exploits. We can say, hey, because we have 25 plus threat feeds, we know how threat actors are exploiting it. So we can confirm exploits as they are happening. Anyone will give you threat detection. But when Qualys does it, so when they are giving you threat detection, it's an unbounded stream of consciousness. It will flood you. It's creating noise for you. But when we do it, it's a bounded set of assets ranked by TruRisk and findings attached to it. And that's a very different experience from how you go about doing threat management in a risk-aware way. You can confirm exploits. You can block behavior in a noise-free way. When you respond with Qualys, you create response as code, response as policy. And that policy affects every instance of the container. When you create exceptions, it affects every instance of the container, even future instances. It cuts the noise out. It's a noise-free response from Qualys. And finally, with PCI 4.0, containers and cloud are not optional. They are in scope for PCI. There are many fin vendors out there that can do PCI, but they can't do containers. We are very unique. We have a battle-tested FIM product that can also do containers. So again, check it out. So this is where all the VMDR goodness is put to stress test. And if you love VMDR, you'll fall in love with containers. So if you've not done so, check it out. Frictionless, agentless, instant value. Thank you. Next up, I would like to invite on stage Somos, who's a guest and speaker. So please come on stage, Antonio.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Antonio Anderson. I am the Vice President of Information Security and IT. For those that don't really know, for me, that means I am both the CISO and the CIO for Somos Inc. And just a little bit about me, my thought process, things that are important to me. When I wake up in the morning, I instruct my team to use digital interactions to build trust in our organization, because everything we do centers around trust. And for those out there who think security is a cost center, I will disagree. Security can very well be a profit center. Who in the audience, by a show of hands, are in sales? Any salespeople in the audience? All right, so this is not a sales lesson, but I want you to understand something. You will not close a deal if security is not right for your organization. And what do I mean by that? That's 5 stages to a sales process. The first is the relationship. If you have a good relationship, that'll get you in, that'll get you a good conversation. But that won't win the deal alone. The second, you must have a viable product that can solve my business challenges. The third will be pricing. If you talk to a sales rep, hey, why did you lose the deal? Pricing was too high. That's not true for someone like me. If the value was there, I'll pay a little bit more. So don't use pricing as an excuse, but it's definitely part of the sales process. When I was in sales, the fourth part was legal. And I would always say, if you want to kill a deal, send it to legal. Hope them legal folks are out there. Just a joke. I love my legal team. But last but not least, security. Security is at the top of the sales process. If you're not going out marketing your products and services around security, you have a huge miss. Security is definitely a strategic advantage. A little bit about my company. Somos is the global provider of telephone number management and information services. Now, most of you haven't heard of us, but we manage about 7 billion numbers. And we are responsible for every local toll, every cell phone number, and every toll-free number that you use in North America today. I like to consider us a regulated monopoly. And what does that mean? That means the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, has ordained Somos to be the North American numbering dial plan. In short, most organizations have to kiss the ring if they want to get numbers. Now, on our commercial side of the business, that's tariff. On the commercial side, we provide trusted services through communications, meaning we do fraud mitigation. I don't handle robocalls, but we are part of the ecosystem that deal with robocalls. So after the meeting, if you see me, don't ask about robocalls. I can't help you. All right. Now, why are we here today? I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing with container security and how I ended up partnering with Qualys to help me out in my situation. Now, I've been at Somos for about 3 years. And when I first came on, we had these challenges. I didn't have good visibility. I had siloed tools. What do I mean? I had 3 or 4 different tools giving me different readouts. I couldn't understand why this particular tool was giving me certain data, this particular tool was giving me certain data, but we just couldn't really get the tools to align. Too much noise, poor prioritization, and a lot of false positives. What was the solution? Easy. I needed a unified platform so I can get end-to-end visibility. I needed to have a way to get threat-informed prioritization. How do we do that? How do we get alignment? And of course, noise reduction. This was a huge push in my organization. Now, you would think it's easy for me because I'm both the CIO and the CISO, and I could just put an edict out there that say, hey, you cannot bring in another tool in this organization until you figure out how the new tool is going to replace 2 or 3 other tools that I have. And when I say that, I'm not saying it has to be the best, but you need to find a tool that can be dominant in one area and good enough across others. This is very important. What did we do? We did a bake-off. I won't mention the other competitors, but Qualys was one of the competitors. And of course, Qualys won out. And when we deployed Qualys, like I said, I've been here 3.5 years. When we deployed Qualys, it gave us end-to-end visibility right away. I was able to get 80% reduction by cleaning up all the clutter. We didn't know what we didn't know because we just didn't have that end-to-end visibility. We were able to get streamlined remediation based on the QID. So now I have my engineering team, I have my development team, and we were able to achieve 90% reduction in duplicate checks. Now, this didn't happen overnight. Once again, when I've been there 3.5 years, we started to see this progress slowly over 18 months of deployment. But the biggest thing came when we jumped to Fargate. Anyone familiar with Fargate out there in the audience? All right, not many. Fargate is fairly new. It's out there on AWS. We happen to be very nimble. So as soon as Fargate came out, we jumped on Fargate. The tools couldn't follow. Right away, when we deployed Qualys, Qualys was able to give us nearly 100% visibility into the Fargate platform. So I'm not saying that Qualys is perfect. I see the heads out there. But what I am saying is Qualys has been a very great partner. They sat with my team. They continue to sit with my team. They listen to our requests. They don't address them immediately, but they do address them over time. And they've been a great partner to work with. Now, some of the things that I'm jazzed about, they have, and for those who are in IT in this room, they have what we call agentless, an agentless deployment. Now, and I laughed because whenever you talk about deploying an agent in an environment and something breaks, what do they say? What do the team say? It was the agent that did it. You're scanning my tools, you're causing problems. No, you cannot deploy an agent. Well, I'm really jazzed about this container security because they're coming out with an agentless service that's going to help calm the noise, ease the friction. Something else that I'm jazzed about is the risk-driven approach, right? So a true risk-based capability. Now, for me, knowing how to get to the signal versus the noise, knowing how to prioritize from top to bottom, handling the risk that makes sense for the business, this is key for my team and I so that we can resolve issues fairly quickly. And last but not least, continuous assessment, shift left. Basically, having my entire team work together engineering, dev, operations. It gives them complete alignment. And we're not guessing. They're looking at the same screens we're looking at. They understand exactly what needs to be tackled. And at the end of the day, I didn't say it's perfect, but we 10 times better than what we were 3 years ago. And a lot of that is attributed to working with Qualys. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can we turn on the mic? Cool. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Houston. My name is Abhinav, and I'm a director of product for Qualys. And I'm excited to take you now through a demo where we'll talk about your ROC journey for containers and how do you accelerate to reduce your risk across multi-cloud and container environments. So let's start with unified asset inventory. We know that deploying sensors across container environments can be hard. Having to work with DevOps teams, IT teams, it creates a lot of friction. And what we want to be able to enable you to do is have agentless container visibility at cloud speed, whether it's serverless, Lambda, Fargate, as Antonio mentioned, or EKS and ECS. How do you get that unified container discovery and visibility on day zero without sacrificing on performance, scale, and continuous scanning? So let's start. So if you're a VMDR customer using our cloud connectors in CSAM even, or a TotalCloud customer, you can go to the connector workflow. And let's take AWS, for example. You can onboard your account or your organization. And when you do that, you get the option. You can launch a stack, download CloudFormation. But the thing is, we're going to be doing an agentless scan, deploying the key components on your environment without sacrificing on any exposure. You don't have to publicly expose your clusters. It's not a periodic snapshot. It's real-time continuous assessment that's being done. And you get instant visibility, whether it's EKS, ECS, Lambda, Fargate. So let's see what that looks like. So we'll go to the dashboard, and you can instantly see your TruRisk across your cloud environment. But this is the key piece. This is your AWS container findings, the ECS clusters, the Lambda functions, EKS on Fargate. And when you go into container security, you can see all these different tabs for your clusters, your serverless, with AWS account ID, regions, populated. So you get that day zero visibility without any Helm charts, any sensors to deploy, no commands or scripts to run. But now you have your IT teams have enforced that you have different cloud tags. For example, you might have a tag in AWS called dev and another tag called prod, or you're doing multi-business unit in your AWS. And IT has intelligently set this, but how do you action it as a security team? So I'll select the prod, and I'll select the clusters. And with one click, again, without having to deploy any agents, any sensors, I can do an enable of an agentless container scan. And instantly, you'll get your TruRisk score, your vulnerabilities, your compliance findings, your TruRisk score aggregated across hundreds or thousands of containers that could be running on this cluster without the need to deploy any agents. Now, the next key is how do I actually prioritize that risk? Containers are highly ephemeral, highly scalable. And the key thing is, how do I actually, we talked about the martini glass with a large-scale customer. They were running 2 million containers, but they needed to prioritize their risk in a timely manner. How do they do that? And this is where agentic AI comes in. So let's welcome Agent Nexa. What Agent Nexa is going to help us do is she's going to basically look at, firstly, the blind spots in my AWS environment for my containers. Next, she's going to say that there were some clusters. I selected the prod tag, but we saw those 3 tags, the dev and the other prod new. And it says, hey, like she's saying, you didn't scan those clusters. Do you want to learn more about them? And they say it belongs to dev new, prod new. And if I'm a security team, prod, my IT team once again set that tag. It makes sense for me to continuously scan any cluster that's in that tag right now and any new cluster that gets deployed as part of that tag. So let me go ahead and do that. Now, rather than having to go container by container and see the results, again, the martini glass view where we want to give you the real indicators of compromise. So first of all, how many are there attack paths present on these clusters, yes or no? Is there some end-of-life software that is not being caught by CVEs? For CSAM customers today, you do this for hosts. Now you can do this for containers as well. And you can see the prod secure gateway with the highest TruRisk score. Let's instantly go into that and ask, what are the attack paths on this cluster? And we can get an example of one right here. Let's go into it from our agent. We can see the exposure context, your AWS load balancers, your pods connected to services. What is the blast radius? For example, an S3 bucket with PII or PHI data. And the code-to-cloud remediation and the traceability. If you're using a checkmark, sneak, veracode, you might have SAST vulnerabilities that your developers may not be prioritizing effectively. If I want to correlate it with actual runtime exposure and vulnerability context to know what to remediate, or even software composition analysis, Node, Java, Python. Now, when I go into the container, we want to elevate the security findings, right? Again, I don't want to have to go into every single vulnerability. I want to see what I need to remediate now. And it seems like we have some end-of-life software. We have an AI summary that's a node vulnerability being caused. The recent NPM supply chain attack that happened indicated that there's a lot of supply chain compromise that can take place. Right away, just like CSAM, you get your end-of-life software for Node, Java. We support over 9 different languages. And you can see the image layers. For example, if the vulnerability came from a base layer, it might be owned by your SecOps team who is building golden images. But if it's from an application, now we want to trace it back to the developer. And this is the third part of our ROC. How do we orchestrate remediation with code-to-cloud traceability and ServiceNow ticketing? So the first part is, I can see where did this vulnerability come from, which developer commit, and the actual checkmarks finding in terms of the SAST vulnerability. And it seems like it's a command injection risk vulnerability that was found in checkmarks, but my developer actually ignored it. So if this is an incident-worthy thing, there's now 2 actions I can take. The first is I can create a pull request right away to fix this vulnerability and reduce my true risk. But the key thing is in containers, unlike host, right? The remediation of the vulnerability belongs to the application or the development teams. If I have a new version of an image, that will get redeployed into a new version of an image. And so it's hard to do that correlation. And so that's where ServiceNow helps us. And so I can ask my agent Nexa, can you create a ServiceNow ticket for further remediation? Remember that ServiceNow helps us with automatic ticketing for your normal hygiene, but this is an incident-worthy attack path, so I want to ask my agent to create a ticket for it. And now when I go into the ticket, you have all the context, your TruRisk, your QDS scoring, which developers is it assigned to, and you can create different rules in ServiceNow to assign to the right teams. And the final part of our ROC journey, how do we do compliance and executive reporting so I can stay compliant to my auditors across my multi-cloud, Kubernetes, serverless, Fargate environments? And that's KSPM. What is KSPM? KSPM is exactly like CSPM, but for your Kubernetes clusters. So we do CIS benchmarking, and we saw that there was a privileged pod in the attack path, and we see that KSPM finding is here as well. And when we go into that control, we can see all the containers. And the thing is, you might not be able to remediate every privileged pod or prevent every privileged pod from running. But what we want to understand is how do we reduce that attack surface to minimize the number of privileged pods that are running. So you can see the exact policy. You can see what multi-cloud standards does it affect. And you can actually see not just the pod name, the subscription, or account, but the actual code evidence. A lot of these pods or containers are deployed as YAML. And you want to be able to get visibility into what is the actual misconfiguration that's taking place so that you can inform your development and DevOps teams. And finally, we have an AI-based remediation summarization that gives you what should you do, like how do I identify my privileged containers? How do I audit my use cases? It gives you suggestions for the cross-platform. For example, creating an admission controller policy to block privileged containers. So this is just a little bit of a sneak peek in what we can do to enable your container ROC journey. But if you want to learn more, you could scan this QR code. I'll be here, Abhishek is here, and we're happy to learn more about your use cases and help your container security journey be more secure and more risk-free. Thank you so much.